great pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to introduce Assemblymember Beall, who's going to provide us with a keynote this morning. And as Daniel said, I've spent most of my career in child welfare. 33 years ago today, I would be looking at getting ready for lunch for 8 delinquent adolescent boys in a group home program, right? And so I've had the opportunity to visit and work with many of you over the years around improvements around child welfare. And it's a great privilege and an honor to come to this point where we're going to be able to spend 2 days really looking at ways in which we can change the system. So, Assemblymember Beall, he's a true native son of San Jose in a real sense, born and raised. And had a distinguished career in government, starting as the youngest city councilman ever elected in San Jose history, 28. I'm assuming that record still holds. And also has had served 3 terms as a supervisor in Santa Clara County. And now, since 2006, has been representing the 24th District of the Assembly seat for the San Jose area. And those of you who are in the room know how important Assemblymember Beall has been in working around advocating for children in foster care. As the chair of the Human Services Committee, also he's the chair of now the Select Committee on Foster Care and also Drug and Alcohol. So he has a distinguished career, and he's been a real advocate on behalf of children. Most recently AB 12 and AB 212. And so I think what is important about when we asked Assemblymember Beall to be here today is to be able to give his perspective on the career related to working with children in foster care. And so I'm going to ask Member Beall to come on up.
Boy, you have an accent on the causeway here. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? And we are pretty excited about the progress we've made. You know, it's really exciting because, quite frankly, when I started here in the Assembly, I wasn't sure with all the budget problems, the issues that we were dealing with the cutbacks, that we were, and maybe the governor wasn't, quite as interested as we wanted him to be in the subject. We weren't really sure we would achieve as much as we did, but, what happened is we got everybody together and we actually achieved something. So, feel good, right? Now, I also want to put a shout out to a person that I'm not sure he's too happy about. He's back with me now. Okay, we got kind of this relationship at Santa Clara County, and then I left the county, and he's probably thinking, "Whoa, there goes Big Jim. He's gone now," and now he comes back to the state. And he has to deal with Big Jim again. So Will Lightburn. So a lot of the work I did, and the reason I'm pointing him out is a lot of the work we did in foster care originated from some of the ideas we had in our community in developing our plans in Santa Clara County. So, and as those you know, I'm a former member of the County Board of Supervisors and chair of the Committee on Children and Families there in Santa Clara County. And before that, I think, people say, how did you become a champion in this issue? Well, I think it started by being the oldest son in a family of 10 children, if you want to say it that way. Sure, certainly that. How many people here are the oldest in the family, a large family? Anybody here? oldest, one or two, second. Okay, you know what your parents always said, watch out for the younger ones, right? Make sure they don't get in trouble. So we had like a job of doing that. So I think that fit pretty good with my role as somebody working in the foster care area. So people ask me, keeping people out of trouble, helping people. And I think when I became a high school student, I decided I wanted to serve others. And I went through that Jesuit education, serve a person for others, was the motto at my high school. And I think I kind of decided that's what we want to do with our lives, here. We want to serve other people. And it's interesting that I paid my way through the Jesuit high school in San Jose by working in the fields. So I actually hoed vegetables and worked 12 years as a farm worker in the Central Valley. It's one of the few big white guys out there in the field. And I think I developed a sense of the issues of social justice and extreme issues of injustice that happen here in California that kind of transitioned into my service for others that I developed later in life. So when I became a member of the legislature, Karen Bass, of course, talked to me, and when she became speaker, she asked me to be chair of the foster care committee, take her position and transition that. And we had hearings throughout the state. We had in that committee, I think, more hearings. One of the people say, how did you become so successful in AB 12? Well, one of the reasons is we did a lot of preparation. We went out and had a lot of hearings all over the state. And I think if you want to have a major impact on legislation, I think one of the keys is to do that, to go out and reach out and get more grassroots involvement, grassroots support, organized, do that grassroots organizing. And I think your organization here was part of it. We had like a big, huge coalition. Like I think over 300 organizations supported AB 12 in the final analysis. We had one group that opposed it. Hey, can't win them all. They claimed the bill would lead to abortions. So I was kind of, I actually didn't know what they were saying, but that's okay. So that happened. So we had 300 groups, and the Blue Ribbon Commission on Foster Care certainly play a big role in working with people and collaborating and creating a good network of supporters. When you talk about foster care and kids and providing services, you can't just talk about the dependency court. You can't just talk about social services agencies, mental health agencies, the schools as separate entities. And I think one of the things when you talk about your information systems that I've been a big advocate for is looking at the direction we're going in the medical care is to kind of collaborate and pull the medical systems together and have information sharing to collaborate on the best outcome for the patients in the medical system. Well, if you wanted to apply that same theory of for foster care, I certainly think your systems should have a crossovers between those agencies. And sometimes there are laws, as we know, that put walls up so that people can't get information, like we have HIPAA, the federal law. We have some criminal justice laws, et cetera. The Social Service Agency has walls. It's very important that if we want to kind of produce a a good information system that's in the best interest of the young people, to have a full discussion on how that can work to their advantage and how the information systems can work to their advantage. So that's one thing I wanted to leave with you today. I know it's going to be, we have, there's, if you want to sit down, you can always say, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. Well, okay. Well, if we can't do things, what's going to happen is we're going to have a lot of kids that are not going to be successful. So the goal is to make more successes, make a higher level of success. And we have to communicate together in our technological society to do that. I wanted to also mention languages. My county, of course, is a real international place. I think about 40% of the residents of my county were born in some other country other than the United States. That's interesting statistics. People don't realize that Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley, the only place in California right now that's generating any kind of growth in the economy is the latest report. We're generating a lot of growth right now in the economy. We're about 20% of the California economy. And part of it is we have this efficiency and I think ability in a lot of our companies to be resourceful in terms of cultural competence. So I think cultural competence is a key to responding to our foster care also. And I always speak on that because we're going to have some hearings of the Select Committee on Foster Care on Hispanic and Black African American issues. Okay, we're going to have some hearings. We all have the big hearts, and we all have, we want to be successful for the kids. The Select Committee on Foster Care really, how did we impact the outcomes? Well, we did some kind of strange things when we lobbied for AB 12. I'll just tell you you want to hear some of the weird ones? Well, you guys know some of the legislators, right? You know George and Sharon Runner, right? And you wouldn't think that they would be a big supporter of a bill from my perspective, maybe. But we brought a former foster youth into Sacramento, and he helped lobby AB 12. He was the country western star Jimmy Wayne. And Jimmy Wayne turned out, the grandson of the Runners was a big fan of Jimmy Wayne's, and he found out that Jimmy Wayne, through his website, I guess these kids know everything about everybody that's going on, so he found out that Jimmy Wayne was coming to Sacramento to lobby on AB 12, so he, of course, asked grandparents, what is AB 12? So they had to explain it to him. And he found out that Jimmy Wayne was coming. And so the Runners contacted my office, and I said, oh, let's have dinner. So we had myself, their grandson, and Sharon and George Runner, and Jimmy Wayne for dinner. And I think that was a key in getting the Senate to let the foster, to not have a real strong bipartisan or a single-party vote in the Senate. We got some Democrats that voted for it, and Republicans that voted for it. So I think those kind of things are very important. Jimmy Wayne actually went out. Basically, I had him go out to every country western fan in the legislature, and he lobbied them all. We kind of figured out who was the country western fans, So we got Jimmy Wayne in to talk to him, and help get our bill passed. And that goes to point out that, when we got the bill passed, there's no right wing or left wing. It's like when the bill was passed in the legislators, the assembly was like 71 to 3 or 4 or something like that. It was We also had Alex Smith, the 49ers quarterback, come up. So that kind of helped a lot of ways, too. So we got football fans. And I think Tom Berryhill really liked that. He was happy that I had Alex Smith come up. So, and Bill Berryhill. The Berryhills are 49er fans. So we got him to meet Alex Smith, hey. And Alex said, hey, you better vote for this. One of the things I wanted to mention today was that we're still having budget problems. Although it kind of went down in the fall, and now it's kind of going up a little bit, and we're kind of waiting for next couple of weeks to see if we kind of did this in the economy. It kind of went down, now it's kind of going up. So we're kind of waiting to see how the budget's going to look in the next couple of weeks. It might be a little better than we thought, a few weeks ago. Certainly in our area, it's going up. We had Dell Computer come in and say they're going to hire 500 jobs last week for an R&D center. So we might not be able to eliminate all the budget deficit, but I think hopefully things look a little bit better. If things look better, we hope that we don't have any cuts in the child welfare system. Certainly, if you look at all the systems we have, child welfare courts, et cetera, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, we're going to have a hard time getting doctors to go to the Medi-Cal system with a 10% cut on Medi-Cal payments. A lot of the court systems have laid off employees, Social service, health care, everything is hurting. Foster care, child welfare staff are being cut back, or in some cases furloughed, or I heard some layoffs have happened. So how do you produce results with that? Well, you got to try to make government work better and make it more efficient. I think that's kind of what you're talking about here. You're going to try to reduce the number of foster kids in the system without endangering. You have to have that careful balance, allow the system to have a balance between, family reunification goals and the safety of the child. It's a very touchy balance. The best way you can have that balance occur, in my opinion, is to have well-trained professionals that have adequate numbers of foster youth caseloads to help those children, and to have good systems that allow them to work effectively as possible. So good casework, good working with the families is really a key, I think. The face-to-face work, to me, is probably the most important. The front line is going to be the most important. And right now, the caseloads are going up, and we're kind of worried about it. So I think that that's something to look at in every county, is what your caseloads are per social worker. You got to really look at that. And if we're probably going to have some hearings on budget impacts on the child welfare system over the next year, to look at what is actually happening out there, get some good feedbacks. I think my goals for this next year, this is my last year in the legislature, at least for the Assembly. I may be moving on to the Senate, but we'll see. But it's my last year in the Assembly, and I think in my last year, I want to leave with the claim that we did make a difference. We did make, in a tough time, the foster care system better in California. We did respond to problems throughout the state. We did help in some of the ridiculousness in some of the existing laws of cutting kids off at age 18 and moving them to have a future. We did work on improving the opportunities for education and lowered the number of foster kids that are incarcerated. We did improve their health care systems. We did improve the court systems and the way that foster kids are handled in the courts and improved results. So those are some of the things that I want to say when I leave after 6 years in the Assembly. And I think we can do that if we continue to work all the way to the end and fight all the way to the end. Probably the biggest thing that you need to have is a will and persistence and a heart. And it seems to overcome all the obstacles if we all work together with those qualities in ourselves. And I hope that all of you have that over the next year and work with me to achieve those results. So thank you very much. And if I have time, I'll answer questions. Okay, thank you. Want a couple? What do you want? Two? Anybody have questions about what we're doing? You know what we're doing? We're going to have hearings. We're going to have them in Los Angeles, Sacramento, and the Bay Area, maybe in the Central Valley. We're going to do a campaign like that. So we're not shutting down. In other words, we're going to move. We're going to move some stuff.
Is the legislature looking at how to kind of not necessarily mandate, but state where they can and should be sharing data across these systems?
Well, I think if we have to change or clarify some of the laws, we're going to need to do that. You know, if the law needs to be changed to do some smart things, I call it smart things that would make the outcomes better. I think last year we had an experience with the balance between the right to privacy on the foster youth or alumni wanted. They came to us and they said, well, we don't like some of the open court, you know, that whole discussion on the fear bill last year. And we have to achieve some kind of equilibrium on that, you know, to be honest about it. I think the same thing applies to medical records and court records, social service department records. I think it makes sense to have collaborative meetings to talk about their records in a secure way. Maybe you could develop a process to do that and the information share with a system that could be created. If you simply develop systems that just develop your own system for each unit of government, that probably would just eat up a lot of money, and I don't know what kind of outcomes you're going to get. You're going to spend a lot of money, and all that money you're going to spend is going to be taken away from something because we don't have enough money for everything, right? So if you're going to spend the money on the information systems, at least develop it in the mind of what our goals are overall, which is to, of course, reduce the number of kids in the system, not increase the number of kids in the system. And, you know, we've been successful in reducing the number of kids in the system. You know, I think we had a 10-year period where we had over 100,000 kids. We're at 58,000 now, California. So we don't want to create a system that just sits there, costs a lot of money, you know. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
Child welfare is kind of an afterthought in the realignment process, but it's there. and I'm scared.
Well, one of the things I mentioned in our Democratic caucus was that if you look at the dollars, the $5 billion something in realignment money, about $3.5 billion of that is the combined mental health and child welfare. So when you talk about the realignment in dollars, you're really looking at a social service, mental health, substance abuse realignment. That's the big dollar part of the realignment. The publicity goes to the sheriff and the probation department and that part, but the bigger part is to the counties in terms of realigning all those health and social service systems. So this has been noticed by the legislature, at least by the Assembly Democratic Caucus. We talked about it. One of the thoughts is to look at, for helping small counties, if we're going to do this realignment, what about encouraging consortiums of small counties? You know, we don't need 58 systems, you know, we can combine some of them. And we can provide a broader scale of services to the many different types of cases we have, individual cases we have of kids in the system, if maybe we can combine some of the counties and allow them to operate some kinds of services that they offer in a consortium fashion or a joint powers fashion, okay? Hey, thank you, everybody.